They say betrayal hurts most when it comes from the people you love. But what they don't say is how betrayal warps your entire sense of self. That day, I stopped being Samantha, daughter of Mark Whitmore. I became the girl who was accused of harming her stepsister. The villain in a story written by someone else. It was a rainy Thursday evening, I remember. The kind where the sky hangs low and everything feels heavier. I was in the kitchen, peeling carrots, helping with dinner like I always did. My stepmother, Clarissa, was out back talking on the phone, and her daughter, Lacey, was running through the hallway upstairs, ignoring the no socks on stairs rule that we all knew too well. Then I heard it. A loud thud. Followed by a shriek. I dropped the peeler and ran. I found Lacey crumpled on the landing, holding her ankle and wailing like her life depended on it. Clarissa came storming in right behind me, saw her daughter on the floor, and immediately turned on me with venom in her eyes. "What did you do?" I blinked, confused. "What? You pushed her?" she screamed. "No. She fell, she was running, she said you did it." I looked at Lacey, expecting her to correct her mother. To tell the truth. But she just kept sobbing and nodded, eyes wide with faux innocence. In that moment, I realized I wasn't standing in my home anymore. I was in a courtroom, and Clarissa was judge, jury, and executioner. And my father, he appeared on the stairs moments later, stared at the scene, and instead of asking what happened, he turned to me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Disgust. "Samantha," he said, his voice tight. "Go to your room. Now." I obeyed, dazed, hoping he would come talk to me later. Hoping he would realize how ridiculous it all was. He did come to my room. 20 minutes later. With a trash bag. "You need to leave." I sat up from my bed. "What? Are you serious? Clarissa doesn't feel safe with you here." "She's lying." Lacey fell on her own. He didn't look at me. Didn't even ask for my side. He just dropped the bag at my feet. "You can go stay with a friend. We'll talk later." Talk later? Talk later? I was 17. A high school senior. His daughter. And he was throwing me out on the word of a woman he married 3 years ago and her bratty daughter. "Dad, please. This isn't right. You know I would never." "I don't know that anymore," he said, and walked out. The front door slammed a few minutes later, and I was on the porch, rain soaking through my hoodie, holding a plastic bag of clothes and notebooks. The porch light flicked off behind me. Just like that, I was invisible. I wandered for hours that night. I didn't have a car. My dad had always said I could use the family one when I needed, and now even that felt like a privilege I'd lost. My phone was at 14%, and I had $11 in my wallet. I finally called my friend, Elise. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, can I crash at your place? Just for tonight?" There was a pause. Then a soft, "Of course." She didn't ask questions. I walked over in the rain, hood up, shivering. Her mom made me a cup of tea and handed me a towel without judgment. I slept in their basement, curled up on a worn couch, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. Not that night. I was too numb to cry. Too humiliated. Too angry. The tears would come later, in waves that would hit me at school. At red lights, in the bathroom stalls between classes. Over the next few days, I rotated between friends' houses. I never stayed longer than 2 nights in one place. I didn't want to burden anyone. I pretended everything was okay. I still showed up to school on time, turned in my assignments, laughed at jokes in the hallways. But my insides felt hollow. Eventually, I swallowed my pride and called my grandparents, my mom's parents. We hadn't been close since she passed, and my dad slowly cut contact. But I was out of options. My grandma answered. Her voice cracked when she heard mine. Sammy? Sweetheart, is everything all right? And just like that, I broke. Every wall I had built shattered as I told her everything. Not in complete sentences. Not chronologically. Just pain, poured out in sobs and gasps. She didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. Come home, baby. We're coming to get you. They drove 2 hours that night. When they pulled into Elise's driveway, I ran out and hugged my grandpa like a drowning person clinging to a lifeboat. My grandma sat in the front seat, crying silently. Their home smelled like cinnamon and old books. The spare bedroom had my mom's quilt on the bed. I hadn't seen it in years. They made hot chocolate, even though it was late, and sat with me until I fell asleep in the recliner. Surrounded by the only people who still saw me as me. That night, I slept without fear. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't watching my back. And for the first time in my life, I learned that sometimes, the people who should love you the most, simply don't. But that doesn't mean you're unlovable. Life with my grandparents became my salvation. They weren't rich, but they were kind. They asked me questions without judgment, gave me space when I needed it, and supported me when the nightmares came. Because yes, I had nightmares of being thrown out, of Clarissa's eyes filled with fake horror, of my dad's silence. It wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to scream. Days I hoped he'd call and say he made a mistake. But the phone never rang. Not once. Not on my birthday. Not for graduation. Not when I got accepted into college. It was as if I'd been erased, like I never existed. But my grandparents, they made sure I didn't sink. They found a therapist for me, someone gentle who didn't push. I went to community college first to save money, and eventually transferred to a university nearby. I worked part-time, helped around the house, and studied like my life depended on it, because it kind of did. I needed something no one could take from me. While my classmates posted family photos and proud parent captions, I learned to cheer for myself. I took pictures with my grandparents after every semester, printed them, and taped them on my wall. They were all I had. And in many ways, they were more than enough. During those years, I never heard from my father. I occasionally checked his and Clarissa's social media out of curiosity. Their lives seemed pristine. Family dinners. Vacations. Lacey's birthday parties. All smiles. No mention of me. Ever. It was like watching someone else's life. Like I was a ghost floating outside the glass, knocking, but no one looked up. But the truth? Their silence became fuel. Every time I wanted to quit. I remembered that rainy night on the porch. I remembered the garbage bag. And I pushed harder. Because if I had nothing else, I would have a future. The letter arrived 3 weeks after my college graduation. A thick envelope with a silver seal, addressed to me. My heart skipped when I saw the return address, Whitmore Barron Legal Firm. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But the moment I opened it, everything shifted. My grandfather had passed away. Not my mom's dad. My father's. My paternal grandfather, Richard Whitmore. The one I barely knew growing up. The one my father never talked about fondly. He was stern, private, and kept his distance after my mother died. I only remembered fragments, his deep voice. The smell of cigars, the quiet nods at Christmas. But apparently, he'd been watching me all along. The letter was from his lawyer. It said I was named the primary beneficiary of his estate. I was in shock. It wasn't just money. It was everything. His house. His stocks. His business shares. Even the land our old family home stood on, the one my father and Clarissa still lived in. I thought it was a mistake until I saw the will. He had written a clause, tucked deep inside. Should my son Mark Whitmore or his spouse Clarissa attempt to challenge this distribution, or should they have, through action or inaction, failed in their duty of care towards Samantha Whitmore, they shall be considered in violation of this will. In such a case, they are to vacate all properties owned by this estate within 30 days of notification. My hands trembled. I read it again. And again. He knew. Somehow, he knew what they had done to me. And he wrote it into stone. That same week, the firm served an official notice to my father and Clarissa. They had 30 days to leave the house they'd lived in for over a decade. I didn't go to the eviction hearing. I didn't need to. Justice was quiet. Neat. Clean. Like my grandfather always was. At first, I thought they'd go quietly. But I was wrong. 3 days before the deadline, it happened. A loud knock on my apartment door. Angry, frantic pounding. I looked through the peephole and felt my blood go cold. It was them. Clarissa. Red-faced. Screaming something about betrayal. My father. Pale. Silent. Staring at the door like he couldn't believe where he was. I didn't open it. I simply sat on the couch, sipping tea, watching them through the camera. They pounded. Cursed. Pleaded. And I didn't move. Because this time, I was the one inside. And they were the ones in the rain. The banging didn't stop. At first, it was just Clarissa, red-eyed and furious. Shouting like a banshee. You ungrateful brat. This is my house. You think some paper changes that? Your grandfather was senile. This is our home. She wasn't even trying to fake innocence anymore. That mask she wore so well, the saccharine sweetness and crocodile tears, gone. All that remained was the venom underneath. The truth. Then came my father. Not shouting, but begging. Samantha. Please. Just talk to me. We can figure this out. I'm still your dad. Those words made me flinch. Still your dad. Where was that man when I was 16? When I stood outside in the rain, soaked and shivering, clutching a trash bag while my heart shattered? Now, with his comfortable life crumbling around him, he wanted to reach for the daughter he threw away? No. I wasn't that scared, broken girl anymore. I was a woman who built herself back up, without him. A woman who survived without their help, without their pity, and certainly without their apologies. I didn't answer the door. I just stood there in my quiet apartment, hand gripping the counter, heart thudding in my chest like a war drum. They stood outside for 15 minutes. 15 long, desperate, ugly minutes. And then Clarissa snapped. You'll regret this, Samantha. This was your chance to make things right with your family. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Make things right with my family? The same family that tossed me out over a lie? That never even looked for me? Clarissa and my father eventually left. I watched from the window as they walked away, their silhouettes small and hunched under the weight of their downfall. She was yelling at him, and he was silent, again. Same dynamic. Different day. But this time, I wasn't the one being silenced. After that visit, I expected them to return. To call. To find some legal loophole. But they didn't. They were served again by the estate's lawyer. The notice was clear, no negotiations. No loopholes. They had to vacate. And from what I later heard, they tried to appeal, but the clause in the will was ironclad. My grandfather had been thorough. He had built it with the same meticulous care he used to build his business empire. A week later, I got a call from the estate manager. Miss Whitmore, the property is now yours. You may collect the keys at your convenience. I almost didn't go. That house was tainted in my mind, haunted by memories of betrayal, abandonment, and cold rain. But something inside me knew I had to. Not just to see what they left behind, but to reclaim what had once been stolen from me. When I walked through the gates of my childhood home, something in my chest tightened. The garden was overgrown, the paint slightly peeling. It looked smaller than I remembered. And quieter. So eerily quiet. Inside, it was like a museum of pretense. Perfectly curated furniture, smiling family portraits, none of which included me. Clarissa's influence was everywhere. She'd tried to erase me completely. But in the attic, tucked in a dusty box, I found what I never thought I'd see again, my childhood scrapbook. My mother's handwriting in the margins. Photos of me as a toddler with crayon on my cheeks. Her perfume still faintly lingered on the pages. I sat on the wooden floor and cried. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I had taken back. I had a choice now. To sell the house. To demolish it. Or maybe, just maybe, turn it into something new. A shelter. A safe space. Something for girls like me, who'd been thrown away for someone else's convenience. The idea lit a spark in me. Purpose. My grandfather didn't just give me property. He gave me power. Voice. Justice. And with that gift, I could give someone else a fighting chance. The past would never change. But the future? That was finally mine. The idea of turning the house into a safe space for young women didn't let me sleep. For days, I wandered its halls, once filled with cruelty and manipulation, envisioning what it could become. Not just a shelter, but a sanctuary. I contacted contractors, architects, and women's shelters for insight. I spoke to young women who'd lived through betrayal, abandonment, and violence. I listened to their stories, stories so painfully familiar to my own. By the end of the month, the project had a name, the Whitmore House Reclamation Project. It would offer shelter, therapy, legal aid, and career counseling. It would be everything I wished someone had offered me when I was 16 and drenched in rain. I used a chunk of my inheritance to fund the first year. Then I created a foundation named after my mom. The Lily Foundation, for the woman who gave me my strength even in death. And with that, the house was reborn. The walls were repainted with calming pastels. The cold furniture was replaced with cozy, safe, soft corners. The rooms were no longer haunted, they were healing. Word spread. Donations came. Volunteers arrived. The Whitmore name, once associated with privilege and cruelty, was now attached to hope. And I, Samantha Whitmore, the girl they threw away, became the woman who gave that name meaning. But just when I thought I had buried my past, it came knocking again. I didn't expect to see him. It was a Saturday morning. I was outside the newly renovated Whitmore house, giving a tour to a group of supporters. A black sedan pulled up, slow and hesitant. The driver's door opened. My father stepped out. He looked older. Thinner. Weaker. No Clarissa beside him this time. I stiffened, my gut twisting. He walked slowly, like each step was weighed down by guilt. "Sam," he said softly. I didn't respond. He glanced at the building behind me, eyes scanning the nameplate near the door. The Lily Foundation. He nodded once, lips tightening. "You did this," he said, voice breaking. "You really did all this." "I did," I replied simply. He looked at me, eyes full of tears. "I didn't know about the clause in the will. I didn't know he left it all to you." I met his gaze. He didn't just leave me a house. He left me a chance. One you took from me when I was a child. He flinched. "Clarissa, she lied to me. And you believed her." "I thought I was protecting my family." "I was your family." There was silence. Raw, brutal silence. "I've lost everything," he said. Clarissa left. Took Lacey and ran when the eviction started. Said she didn't sign up to be homeless. I haven't heard from her since. I said nothing. My heart didn't ache for him. Not anymore. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he continued. You didn't deserve what happened. I should have been your father. I looked at him for a long time. His apology hung in the air, too late, too small, too broken. But I wasn't the same girl anymore. I forgive you, I said quietly. But I don't forget. And I don't let people like you close anymore. He nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. Then he turned and walked away. No big scene. No more shouting. Just a quiet end to a broken chapter. As he drove off, I exhaled. The past had finally let go of me. And now, all that was left was the future.